it sort of, for me, it sort of feels like I've fetishized jealousy in a way. Now, I don't know if that's even the right way to put it, but it just, I feel like it's sort of a similar feeling to when I used to feel jealous at times, but because there's definitely an anxiousness when Michelle is out on a date, waiting to hear what happens and all of that if I'm not there. But it turns into a huge positive, not a fight.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 252. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an interview with Michelle and Ron. This is a wide-ranging and super fun conversation. They've been together about 10 years and non-monogamous for around 3, and hold on for this one.
Yeah, this is super fun. I want to just say a huge thank you in advance to both of them for coming on. We talk about so many different things, as Emma said, a lot of which, not a lot of which, but a good chunk of which is around pregnancy and what happened to their dynamic and their relationship just in general through pregnancy. And it's actually a really incredible story. And so we're touched to be able to share it. And as you can tell, we have a pretty good rapport with these two. It was just a fun and easy conversation. And so I feel an obligation to apologize at the beginning.
Apologize for what?
Well, for calling Michelle a tramp.
Oh.
You'll have to listen to when we get to that part. I felt like we were there. I think we were there. She didn't seem too offended. But for anybody listening who is,
you meant it in good fun.
That's right. Whenever I call people tramps, it is never tramp shaming. How about that?
So the point is, a huge thank you to Michelle and Ron for coming on the podcast, sharing your story, and we're excited to get this out there. We also wanted to give a huge shout out, thank you to all of our premium subscribers, and for all of you, we're going to jump right into the interview with Michelle and Ron now. And for the rest of you, we're going to run through what a premium subscriber is and a few other community announcements before jumping into the interview.
So first up, the premium subscription. This is something that we launched just a couple of weeks ago as a way to give you an option to skip these announcements, skip the community announcements, or maybe you're already a Patreon subscriber and you don't want to hear about it again. Well, Patreon subscribers get the premium subscription for free, and everybody else, you can sign up and you get to choose your price for as low as $2 a year. So it doesn't get a whole lot cheaper than that. And that lets you skip the ads and support the show. And you get to feel warm and fuzzy inside and feel good about yourself.
Links to sign up are in your podcast player or in the podcast show notes, which you can find on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Our next announcement is our next virtual meet and greet is coming up on September 27th. We actually just had another one last night, and it was amazing.
Wow, last night from the day we're recording.
Oh, last week, I should say.
Last week in real time. But it was amazing. Like you said, we had almost 50 people. We had between 45 and 50 people, and it was fantastic. This is our biggest one yet. And so we're growing, and these are super exciting. And they're open to anybody.
Yeah, the requirement to join a meet and greet are just that you are open-minded and respectful. That's it. So go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, click on the events tab, and sign up there.
And the last thing we wanted to talk about in our intro today is one last community announcement. And actually, we're not going to talk about it much because we had an amazing testimonial sent in from one of our OG patrons who's a part of just about everything we do. He shows up with either himself or his partner or partners and is always an incredible and supportive member of the men's group, the main group, and everything we do. So a huge thank you to you, Jason, and your partner and your partners for all you do. And so we're going to play Jason's testimonial, and then we're going to jump into the show. If you would like to reach out to us, you can send us an email, send us a voicemail over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Contact Us tab. There are ways to do either a voicemail or an email, and we would love to hear from you. So now, a little bit from Jason, and then we're going to jump into the interview.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Hi, Em and Finn. It's Jason from New Mexico. First off, I just want to tell you thank you for all the things that you've done with the podcast and the community that you're building, have built, and are expanding. It's really inspirational and has become an important part of my life. See, I grew up in a very fundamental religious setting, and years ago, I had to leave when I began to realize that, among other things, I'm a queer, ethical non-monogamous. My views of the world and my views of myself made me no longer welcome in the community that I'd grown up in. Over time, I began to realize that while I didn't miss the negative parts of my previous community, there were things that I did miss. I missed the sense of belonging and the sense of camaraderie and the ability to be the person that I am in an accepting environment. Fast forward many years and I begin to embrace and explore who I am. I longed for a community where I could have those things. I guess I longed for my tribe. And then I found your community. I joined the Patreon about a year and a half ago, and it's been amazing. But I do have regrets. But that regret is that I didn't join the community sooner. This community gives me a place where I can be authentic. I can support and be supported in my E&M journey. I can jump on calls and commiserate with people in similar situations, literally from all over the world. I have vacations planned to connect in real life with people that I've only met online. I love the men's group calls and chats and the virtual meet and greets and the Q&A sessions. They're fun. This community is not just about E&M relationships either. We talk about food and hobbies and works, dreams and our goals, successes and failures, whether real or perceived, really. We talk about our pets and our kids and other podcasts and books, bikes, trikes, planes and trains. I've made friends who are just like me that I believe will be in my life for a very long time. So I encourage everyone, regardless of your relationship style or situation, to join this community if you're looking for a place to be authentically yourself. You will only regret not having done so sooner.
A huge, huge, huge thank you to Jason for all of your involvement in the community, all of the amazing words that you just shared with us, and just for being a badass, amazing human. And
so if you want to hang out with other people like Jason, head over to our website again, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Patreon tab, and you will find out how to join there. And we would love to have you. And now, as we promised, we're jumping into the conversation here with Michelle and Ron.
Let's go. Oh, boy. Well, let's get into this. Welcome to the podcast, Michelle and Ron. We're excited to have you here and excited to laugh and share. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, it's really good to be here.
Yeah. Well, you're up past your bedtime, and we're up before we normally get up because of COVID. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for staying up for us.
Well, actually, no, the time changes because we're really far apart.
I understand the time changes because of COVID. Yeah, we had to socially distance across 17 time zones.
The way you said that was not clear. Anyway, we'd love for you two to start by introducing yourself at whatever level you're comfortable.
Sure. So my name's Michelle, and how old am I? 37. You have to keep reminding me.
Yeah, that's right.
And we live in Melbourne, Australia, but Americans. So we moved here about 8 years ago, and we've been together. How long have we been together?
Well, we've been married
years.
8.5.
8.5 years, together 10 years. And we've been sort of exploring, let's call it ethical non-monogamy for the last 3 years or so.
Yeah.
Ron?
Awesome. Well, did he fact check you completely? Is she right?
Mostly. It's probably 11 years that we've been together, actually,
Okay.
now. But,
Close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah. Rounding error.
Right. Yeah. Well, she rounded down from 11 to 10. At least she didn't round up to 20. Any other important details she missed, Ron?
Well, I don't know, but I'm Ron. I turned 40 in 2 weeks, actually.
Very
So that's an exciting one.
Awesome. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Basically everything that she said, right? So
Yes.
we've been practicing ethical non-monogamy together for the same amount of time. And we also moved here together to Australia. So
We should probably add that we have 3 young kids also, so that can sometimes make, going out in the dating world and practicing ethical non-monogamy sometimes challenging. But I think we realize that it's quite important to us and something that we quite enjoy a lot. So we try to make it work.
Yeah. Not only that, but we actually got into our non-monogamy journey started just before we got pregnant with our second. And then we very quickly got pregnant with our third. So we've had long breaks where we haven't been able to do it and have just been thinking and listening to your podcast and been able to digest a lot without the practice, I guess. And
probably not practicing because unlike many women, apparently, I have no sex drive when I'm pregnant. So I know, for some people that could be quite fun. But that's definitely been the case. I do think that non-monogamy probably makes people quite fertile. That's fine. Anecdotal evidence, exactly.
Well, that actually, the idea comes from a pop science book, right? Yeah. Sperm Wars.
Right.
There you go. Wow. So how did you? We'll come back to your fertility in a little bit, Michelle.
Great.
How I'm sure that goes well when you're putting it on the website. Hey, we use protection, but I'm super fertile. So yeah. Anyway, how did you two get into it a couple of years ago?
Right. So we were thinking about this earlier today. So I guess when I was single and living in the San Francisco Bay Area, I actually went to a couple, sex positive, body positive, sex parties, kinky salon. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Does it? Okay, great. So I went a couple times when I was single and I had really great experiences when I was there. And this was probably right before I met Ron. After we met, I told him about my experiences and, we were all cool with that. But I think, as we were dating and, after we got married, you would keep asking me about the details of that experience. And I think every time we talked about it, it would be in bed and, we would probably have pretty hot, passionate sex after that. So that was sort of one thing that probably led us up to starting to explore. I also, would read a lot of, Esther Perel, Sex at Dawn, things like that. And I just, always in the back of my mind thought like monogamy doesn't quite make sense. But I guess maybe you want to talk about sort of how talking about those experiences made you feel.
Well, firstly, I felt very differently about it than you from the beginning. I think that I was a relatively jealous person, probably not more than the average person, but I was jealous. So for me, I think the idea of being non-monogamous was bad. And I even told her, I said, if you cheat on me, that's grounds for divorce. That's plain and simple. And
I never understood that.
But you knew that marrying me, right?
Yeah,
so you sort of agreed to that concept. And I really never thought, especially at the beginning of our relationship, that I even could be non-monogamous. It just the jealousy that I felt over just thinking about Michelle with somebody else was pretty overwhelming, and in previous relationships as well. Not that I was, the overjealous boyfriend or anything like that, but it was not something I was open to.
But when
it is something you were aware of about yourself. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
Michelle.
when you when we would talk about it, though, like you would get those jealous feelings, but you would also tell me that you would get like a boner too. So it was like very confusing for you.
It's not fair. What's going on?
Well, actually, it's interesting because I think that now we've been in this longer, that I've heard that from other people where they have a similar experience where they feel like they don't like it, but for some reason they're turned on. So I guess that was the first inkling of, wait, maybe there's something to this.
And you also were you're pretty conservative generally, and you grew up pretty conservative too. So I think at the point that we did start exploring it, I think it sort of blew both of our minds.
Yeah.
A lot of conditioning.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I was curious, Michelle, really quick, backing up, like what got you interested? Like the first time you went to a kinky salon party or to any sex party, like what drew you out to that? Like what was your sort of catalyst for doing that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, in the Bay Area, it's generally quite open. And I think at the time, I was single and, I'd be casually dating and casually having sex, I guess. But I think I was sort of bored of that. And so then I started just exploring different ways to engage in sexual activity and things that were more novel and more fun. And I'm not sure how I do remember. I had a friend who found out about it and I was like, yeah, I'll do that with you. And walking in, I remember being a bit nervous the day of and picking out my outfit and getting ready. But just thinking, you know what, nobody's putting a gun to my head. I can leave at any point. I'm just going to go and see what it's like. And, I can leave and walk out at any point. But it was actually really, really open and welcoming. And I really, really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah. And it sounds like you went back a few times, right? Like you experienced that a few times.
Yeah, a couple times. Actually, it was very funny. Like I think when we first started dating was my second and last time at Kinky Salon. And you had called me late at night. I think it was like, this is probably, before our first date.
It was before our first date. Yeah. I knew I liked you already.
Right. So there was a bit of friendship, like maybe this is something more. And you had called me late at night and you're like, oh, why don't you come over and hang out? I was like, trust me, you do not want to see me right now. And I later told you what was happening. But yeah, that was that would have been an interesting
although in hindsight now, maybe I would have liked it.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, I think that maybe as actually the second question I had was for Ron, which was you sounds like you came from a bit of a conservative background and there was jealousy, and you had even admitted, like when you got together, like you told her that if she ever cheated, like that was grounds for a divorce. How did you receive the information of like, hey, I've gone to like a kinky salon party or a sex party a few times? Like, how did that land for you when you first learned it?
Well, I don't think that I knew right in the beginning. I don't think that was in our first few dates. But when we did talk about it, I think that I think it probably spurred a little bit of jealous feelings in me. But I don't think that, not in a negative way, at least in the way that I portrayed it to her. So I think I took it in stride, and I was curious more than anything. Mm-hmm. Look, when we say that I was conservative, I didn't try a lot of, I've done my share of things, but, I think in terms of my dating history, I was more of the boyfriend type, not the, not the one night. Serial monogamous.
Yes, that's right.
Not a one night stand guy.
Right. I was probably the opposite of that.
Yeah. No, and that's no judgment. I was just kind of curious, like, because those two worlds coming together can be interesting, like interesting conversations and people having to figure out, like, okay, what do we do with this moving forward? And it sounds like maybe there was some jealousy, but it wasn't like, I could never be with this tramp. Like it was never like a negative.
Whoa.
So, I'm projecting. So what happens when you get me early in the morning? My filter's not on yet.
No, I did not feel like that at all. I was, yeah, I mean, I think the point that we really got, we were talking about this earlier, that when I first started really prying into her experiences at Kinky Salon, it was the same weekend where we realized that we both loved each other.
Isn't that
right?
nice? Yeah.
And so I think that, it was in the guise of, just essentially realizing that we've fallen in love. That we're having these conversations, which probably masked any of those other issues.
I guess, a weekend of where we're falling in love and like being completely open and honest and stuff. Yeah. That probably goes hand in hand. That's nice. I never really thought about that.
And it's a lot sweeter than me calling your wife a tramp. So I'm sorry for that. So we'll get past that. And then, so when you started talking about it in earnest, like what did the trajectory look like from like, hey, let's revisit this to like, hey, let's do this.
Right.
Yeah. So that was, when we were first dating, and then probably I would say that about once a year or so, maybe every 6 months, the conversation would come up in bed, usually in revisiting her past experiences. And it would always lead to some passionate sex. Mm-hmm. And then probably
so then we started. I love Esther Perel, so her book Mating in Captivity, and also The State of Affairs. And I think when I told you about it, you sort of had this idea that she just promotes having affairs, and you were very against it. But eventually you read her book, and I think that sort of it turned a switch or something.
Yeah, it made it less scary for me.
Yeah. And then you said to me at one point, if you ever do have an affair, it's okay, but you need to come back and tell me every single detail. And that was like, what? And I don't know where your head was at or why you told me that. But I think also like we didn't know that there was this thing called ethical non-monogamy. So we kept framing it as like affairs.
Did we?
Yeah, when you don't have any other context.
Yeah.
Possibly. I think what you said is mostly right, except that I think it was we were actually in this period of trying to get pregnant for 2 years. And because it took 2 years, it was quite frustrating, especially for Michelle. It took a big toll on her. And I just remember one day walking around and we were both sort of depressed about that. And I told you that's when I told you that it's okay if you want to sleep with somebody else, and that I just wanted to know all the details. And that tells you sort of, in terms of, I don't know if we haven't really talked yet about what our specific dynamic is yet, but we operate in the Hotwife stag vixen dynamic a lot. And that, and so a big part of that is that she'll play with others, and I really like to either see it or hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that just like, that's a super vulnerable place to be in, to sort of bring that up for the first time, like going through that hard, trying to get pregnant, it's not going well. And then to like, I don't want to say resort, but like to get to that place of like, look, if you want to do this with somebody else, like that's a hard place to like land in a hard time.
Yeah.
And
I think when you're trying to get pregnant and you're unsuccessful and, you're doing it at a certain time of the month and, it just becomes a chore and sex isn't fun anymore. And I think maybe that's where our head was at and what you were trying to communicate, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, possibly. I think that, if there's this idea of sperm competition also, if you go out and you're with somebody else, then my want for you becomes stronger.
Right. Yeah.
So,
there's definitely something to it, right? Yeah. Well, then how did it move for, like, you have this conversation. What are the, I imagine that, how do you receive that, Michelle? Because that's kind of a big, what the hell?
Yeah. I was like, what? So at some point after that, I can't remember the time passed, but you sort of were telling me, it'd be nice if you took me out on a date. And so I did a bit of researching, and I basically came back to Ron and I said, you have two options. One, I made a reservation at a nice restaurant so we can go have a nice dinner together. Or two, there's a sex party happening and we can go do that. So you get to decide, what do you want to do? And he chose the second option. I think, you know, it was very, we probably didn't talk through it enough before we arrived at this sex party. It was sort of, you know, I think Ron wanted to think about, you know, well, what are our boundaries? Like, what if this happens? How are we going to react? How are we going to know about this and that? And I just sort of was like, we'll just see how it goes. It's not a big deal, which was probably not the right thing to do.
Well, you had been to over one of these in the past, right. So you're basically a professional.
Yeah, must be. I will say it was very, very different from Pinky Salon.
Well, not only that, but doing it single versus doing it in a couple is a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And how did that experience go?
Thankfully, really good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's interesting because, you know, talk about a fish out of water. I think that when we arrived, you know, it's like, okay, everybody, you come in, take your clothes off. And so, you know, it not at all what I was used to, obviously. But then I was just shy because everybody seemed to maybe know each other or whatever, and we didn't really know anybody. So we were just sort of hanging around, having a drink, and we ended up talking to one couple that just sort of approached us, and it ended up that we played a little bit with them that night.
Yeah.
But
I think how it sort of started was they, you know, were playing on one side of the bed, and, you know, we sat down and we started making out on the other side of the bed. And then Ron sort of just takes my hand and guides it towards the other guy. And I was like, okay, we're doing this.
Well, and because he was sort of rubbing your shoulder or something like that.
There was no communication. It was not like, it wasn't.
Not between couples.
Yeah.
And looking back in hindsight, it's like, oh my God, you know, we broke every single rule.
But you don't know at that point, right? You're
That's
like,
right.
you're freaking out. Everything's coursing through your body. Yeah. That's crazy.
There's a lot going on.
But it was,
and so that night went well.
Yeah, that night went well. And when we came home, like, you know, we were really into each other as well. We brought the energy back, and we did a lot of debriefing afterwards as well. So yeah, all in all, I think it was a really positive experience.
Yeah.
And I think after that point too, we were like, well, at first you were sort of like, well, I guess we're swingers now.
Did I say that?
Yeah. But we had to unpack like what we enjoyed about the experience, maybe what we thought could have gone better. Are we going to go to similar parties like that in the future? What do we want to explore? But I definitely think it sort of blew the cap off of like, you know, what we were before.
Yeah. It was
a big
different people
pivotal
afterwards.
point
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it was at that party where I realized that I really enjoyed watching her play. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, that was the main thing I said afterwards. I said, you know, this was really fun and I had a great time. But what I really missed out of all of it was I didn't get to watch you enough. And I don't think I really knew that mattered to me or it was important to me. But I definitely did after that. And so that led us to our next experience, which was with a single guy.
Right. And that was probably a less good experience, but, you know, just circumstances, and probably we rushed into it. I know you guys talk about on your podcast a lot about like having this sort of this inclination just to jump for the first thing that you see. And that was probably our rookie mistake as well.
Yeah. We've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. The like scarcity mindset. They're like, oh, somebody's asking us. We have to do it now because it'll never happen again. And then like, I think what the irony there is always that like people jump into something that's not good. And then that sort of skews their mindset. And then they don't want to do it again because it wasn't a good experience. Right. And so yeah, I can totally get, I mean, that was what we did for a very long time. And I don't know why the hell we're still doing this. Because we had so many, we had so many bad experiences at the beginning, and then we just kept coming back and coming back.
Try it again.
You persevered.
Appreciate your tenacity. Yeah. Your tenacity.
Yeah.
You knew there was something there, something special.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All in the name of the podcast that we didn't know what's going to happen 10 years later.
So those, as you were, I don't mean to cut you off.
You're good. It's probably needed.
As you're going through this change of, okay, you went to this first sex party, then you had another experience. Like what is going on in your relationship? What challenges are you running into in that transition?
Well, I kept getting pregnant was the problem.
And they weren't even having sex. She was just, what the fuck? I'm pregnant again.
I mean, it was nuts because literally for 2 years we'd been trying to get pregnant, and there were, 2 sort of miscarriage or failed pregnancies, and then literally a month after our first experience, she's pregnant. So
I promised Ron is the father of the second and third kid, I promise.
So I haven't done a test yet, but pending. What was I going to say here?
Sorry, I threw you off.
That's okay.
She was super fertile.
Right. So we are super excited about all of it at this point. And, we had our first experience. We're gung-ho. This is where we probably find your podcast and a few other podcasts. And we start just eating up information, right? I mean, I think we're still in that phase 3 years later, but just constantly devouring whatever we can. But then she's pregnant. And
I'm lose interest.
Yeah. So she's not as interested. But, for me especially, I'm like, come on. Mm-hmm. And we had to wait 9 months. Well, longer than that, really. But
it's tough to do hotwifing without your wife.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So that puts a damper on things for a couple of months. Well, let's call it a year. How do you come back? How do you come back out of that? Like,
she got pregnant again.
Well, there was a little bit of time in between. I mean, very little time. I had 2 COVID babies, that was like basically
2 weeks.
But yeah, between babies, I think, we got onto Field and we met a couple guys that way and had a couple like positive experience as well. I think we also, from our earlier mistake, we didn't just jump at the next guy. So we're a bit more picky around that. We also, in Melbourne, there's a few different sort of, what do you call them?
Sex clubs.
There you go. So we visited those and also had a couple good experiences, I think. So yeah, we just sort of got into it. I think now, also given the practicality of our life, oftentimes I'll go meet a single guy out, see if there's any vibes, any chemistry, and then sort of, if that's the case, then maybe we'll set up a second date afterwards and have a play there. And that's sort of worked well for us. We've also met up with a couple couples as well, if we find sort of a 4-way connection.
Yeah.
But for the moment, I think it's been mostly sort of one-offs, not to say that we wouldn't be interested in sort of more consistent meetups with the same person. It's just, I think it has to all make sense and feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's really interesting is you had the sex party experience and then sort of not so great single male experience. And then you took a year off, but then it was like the fire kept going for you both. Even though on your side, Michelle, like you kind of shut down libido wise, it sounds like it came back and you both kind of came back like, hey, we're just picking up right where we left off. So like, I think that's impressive. And I don't know, like maybe for any like women listening who are like either going through pregnancy or have gone through it or are thinking about it, like how for you, and again, I know everyone probably varies, but like, did it bounce back pretty quick? It just kind of like turns off and then turns back on?
I think yes, actually, for me personally.
It took a few months.
Yeah. I mean, yes, once you get through the whole newborn stage, but definitely like, it just turned back on for me. I think, you do get some of the, I guess, feeling of being touched out, and definitely my boobs are off limits for like the first couple months while I'm breastfeeding, and I know Ron hates that because he's like, when can I have your boobs back? But yeah, I think it really is just the pregnancy hormones where I'm like, no, thank you. And then once the baby's out, like I'm happy to get back into it again. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
And look, I'm sure that I think that your experience is probably different, and every woman has a different experience with that, right? So,
right. Some women
For
love
sure.
sex while they're pregnant. I'm like, I don't understand it, but that's like a thing too, you know?
Yeah.
Weird stuff
Yeah.
happens to your body. When
and
you're
we have
pregnant.
found out that a lot of men like to have sex with pregnant women.
Right.
So if you are pregnant out there, there's plenty of men out there for you.
Plenty of hotwifing experiences to be had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how there was that transition, I guess. There's been multiple transitions, I guess, as the two of you have explored this, because
Well, then they got to shut it down again.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Right.
basically we got pregnant 6 months after the second baby. So, you know, we had a very short window in there.
Right. So I got pregnant quickly, but also lockdowns were happening.
Oh,
and
yeah,
if you
true.
guys know, like Melbourne had some of the longest lockdowns in the
Strictest.
world, longest and strictest. So, you know, between babies and between lockdowns, it was very sporadic. But, you know, when I was up for it and when we were able to, like, we definitely went out there and explored. So yeah, it was very off and on, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think like,
And it-
you know, it was the mindset shift. You know, I think after that first experience, we were like, yeah, we're just ethically non-monogamous.
Yeah.
Monogamous. You know?
Not monogamable. I love it.
And so where does that leave you two now? Because we actually didn't cover that yet. What is your relationship dynamic at the moment, and what does it look like?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that overall we are, you know, sort of stag, vixen, hotwife dynamic, but we also swing and we also meet up with couples, and there's no reason it has to be just one, right? I think that you know, on a personal level, I have found that the hotwifing experience probably does more for me than it does for her, which
I'm happy to oblige, though. That's not a problem.
which is a weird thing, you know, that, you know, her going out and having sex with somebody else does more for me, and it's almost like an addiction. It's such a strange feeling that I get from her having these experiences, but yeah.
We definitely, like, for you, it's like a kink, like you can't get enough. For me, it's like, yeah, this is fun, this is great, but I don't feel the same like fire, I think, that you do. And I sort of wish I could find something like that for myself, but maybe I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. It sort of, for me, it sort of feels like I've fetishized jealousy in a way. Now, I don't know if that's even the right way to put it, but it just, I feel like it's sort of a similar feeling to when I used to feel jealous at times, but because there's definitely an anxiousness when Michelle is out on a date, you know, waiting to hear what happens and all of that if I'm not there. But it turns into a huge positive, not a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to like get through that anxiety in the moment there of the embrace the uncomfortable feelings, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely. It's definitely uncomfortable, but I don't know. What's positive anxiety? That's
Excitement. Yeah.
Excitement. Yeah.
But it's different. It's because it feels like anxiety more than it does excitement.
Right.
But it is positive. It's such a strange feeling.
And I think like my last experience also, I was away on business. And so it took me a while to get back to you. And I think there was a lot of buildup and anxiety around that for you because it wasn't like I was coming home that night, you know?
Right. And you were out of the country and in a different time zone. And
yeah. Right.
So even more so.
But I think, sorry, I was just
going to say, how did that compare? Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. And then how did that compare, I guess?
Well, so I was just going to say that, you know, with, the online stuff and field, and, it's great because you can sort of swipe and, find people. But there is something about just randomly meeting somebody and the spontaneity of it all that I quite enjoy. And I think also that's in theory, that's why I like sex clubs, because you don't know what's going to happen when you show up, and it's all sort of, up in the air, and there's a bit of excitement around that. But practically, we probably like it less. I'm not sure sort of, what works best. I think at the moment we're just sort of doing the apps and things like that. But I do like, there's something about like having the date and having sort of a spontaneous, thank you, encounter that I quite enjoy.
Yeah. And is that what happened on the work trip?
Yeah. Well, ish. It was a friend of a friend, actually. And so a bit, there was a bit of banter back and forth. And I think he knew what our circumstances were. So it was like, oh, well, show me around, right? Maybe we can go out, party, paint the town red. And so there was a bit of a, maybe something will happen, maybe something won't happen. And that was quite a good experience.
Yeah. And how did it, I guess, with the different time zones being out, not being able to come back together that night, like how did that play
Was that
out?
maybe different than other experiences? Yeah. For you, the two of you.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's hard for me because when I know that she's on a date and don't know what's going on, there's no chance I can sleep. So
did you not sleep for 2 days?
So I'm trying to remember exactly what the time zone deal was then, but I remember it was like getting late and I was like, well, tell me what's going on. It's like 6 a.m. for you and it's getting late for me. So, yeah, it was.
And there was a lot of giddiness afterwards. And I think you appreciate that. Like obviously you like to hear all the details and you get a lot out of that, but I was like really giddy after that experience. And I think you enjoyed seeing me like that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like in every way you have to enjoy it for it to be good. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think maybe it brings back sort of an interesting question. Like you said, Ron, that like you maybe get a little more out of this than Michelle does. But Michelle, you clearly seem to enjoy it. Like, what is your draw to E&M? Like, if you were to create your sort of utopia, what would that look like?
Yeah, good question. What would that look like? I honestly am not sure. Like, I think I would like an ongoing thing with another male, and mostly because like I just don't have the mental capacity and the energy to keep dating and, swiping on the apps. And it's just like a bit mentally draining. And I do have sort of a high demand job. So it's hard to make time, but I do feel like it's important and we both want it. So yeah, I mean, I think I, at the moment, am really enjoying this space and where we're at now. If there was a more reoccurring thing, I wouldn't mind that, just because I think it would probably be easier. I don't know how you feel about that, Ron, but yeah, I'm sort of happy with where we're at now. It's like mostly, single guys, but we throw in some couples in there every once in a while, and I think like that fills my cup.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, I think.
And go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that for Michelle, we talk about this a lot. How I've really found the thing that
mm-hmm.
that lights my fire with all this, and when you're doing a lot of research in the sex space, you see that so many people are really into some type of kink, and
mm-hmm.
Whether it's bondage or shibari or whatever it is, and where it does a lot for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's certainly what the hotwifing does for me, but it doesn't do the exact same thing for Michelle. She obviously really enjoys it because she gets to go in and have sex with new people, which is something that she likes to do, but it's not, it doesn't occupy the same space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's something that we've come up against where trying to find that, like, what is your thing? Like, what's that thing that like grabs you and like gets you revved up and going? And, I think there's probably just some element that like maybe some people don't have that, or they have it to a lesser degree, or it takes them a very long time to find it. Yeah. So,
but it doesn't make the other experiences bad. It's just, there's just a different
intensity.
Level, intensity. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And so as you've done this, besides pregnancies and the light and the COVID, like what have been some of the like challenges you two have come up against as you've kind of gone in and out of this over the last couple of years?
Yeah. That's one of the questions that we hadn't really thought about.
I mean, I think, one of the challenges is just finding the right people. I think from, when you're looking at it from a swinging perspective, finding a four-way connection is even harder. So I think that's one reason why we don't focus as much on that as we do on the hotwifing, just because finding a four-way connection, I mean, I don't think that we've had a proper four-way connection yet in a swinging experience, right? One of us has sort of a better time than the other. Which is fine, because I think that we accept that and we say, okay, well, it's fine. We had a good enough experience. But with hotwifing, we have the opportunity where, it's really, she has to find one person. So it makes that, it's logistically, it's a lot easier.
Right. I was thinking more of challenges between you and I, but I feel like we've been really good at communicating, and we haven't really had many issues or troubles around that. I think, sometimes in my head, and also thinking about how Ron was in, many years past, sometimes it still blows my mind. I'm like, really? You really want me to go out and be with men? And like, it just, when I sit down and think about it, I'm like, wow, how did I get so lucky? And it just sort of blows my mind. I have to like pinch myself, and I'll check in a lot, because I think there is a bit of like disbelief still. So I do check in a lot, and I from that perspective, I don't think we've come across many challenges yet.
I think we've been pretty happy with our journey so far.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and maybe on the flip side of that coin then is, how have you two seen how has each of you seen the other person maybe grow? And it kind of, Michelle, you let on a little bit there, but maybe if either of you have other ways that you've seen the other person sort of come into their own.
Yeah. I mean, I think for Ron, he's just like, it's completely opened his mind to what's possible, and also just allows you to question other societal norms, I think. For both of us, really, it's like, we've been so conditioned to like finding your one, and, the whole like relationship escalator, and sort of, this is what you do, and being with that one and only till you die. And just like knowing that this is possible and it can actually work, I think has been, I'm assuming, quite, mind blowing to you. But yeah, I probably never would have imagined you being so open to such a thing, 5 years ago.
I definitely wouldn't have either. I mean, I think I'm as surprised as anybody. I would have, if you told me 5-10 years ago that I'd be into this and doing this, and this is our relationship style, I would have been like, no fucking way. Not a chance. But here we are.
It happened. Yeah.
I love that. I'm just curious though, like, Ron, if you can talk a little bit about like your personal journey in that. And I know we talked before we started recording, like you struggle with a little bit of shame around it still. And like, if you're open to talking about that and just sort of like what you think happened for you that got you to this place.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the whole shame piece of it, it's not actual shame that I feel for myself. It's perceived shame from other people.
Societal.
Yeah. And so I think one of the challenges, I mean, if we are talking about challenges, one of the challenges is that we have found something that is so amazing for us right now, and we can't talk to very many people about it. And it's not that we can't, because of course we could, but so I've told two of my best friends about it, and their reactions have been, "Oh, I couldn't do that."
It's like what they jump to.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me how it's less about curiosity and more about, "Oh, I couldn't do that," sort of a defensiveness, which I find interesting. And certainly not everybody that we've spoken to about it is that way. But I think the main thing is that I don't tell people what our specific dynamic is if we do have a conversation about non-monogamy, because I understand, I know what I probably would have, the first thought that would have come to my mind if somebody had told me that that's the type of relationship style they're in. Sorry. And so I don't feel comfortable being public about how we are non-monogamous, I guess. And really, I don't feel shame for myself at all. It's really just a perception of how other people would view it if I told them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't have the capability to educate people enough to bring them around, maybe to a few important people in my life, sure. But generally, it's just not an easy conversation to have. So that being said, whenever we are in situations where we are with other people who are non-monogamous, that's great, because then I can talk about it and relate to people better that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, when we have told a few friends, and I think when we tell them, there's one of three reactions. One is, "Oh, I could never do that." They always sort of project onto themselves for some reason. Two, they ask a lot of questions at that point in time, but then they never ask about it again, which is a bit weird. And then the third is, the more positive experience where they're, asking about it and very interested, and they're like, "You do you, that's great." But it is interesting, and probably like the three reactions that we get we don't always sort of expect it from those particular people as well. The reactions surprise us.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's right. And I think because it's now such a big part of our lives, I mean, really it's a defining characteristic in our relationship at this point. It's strange that we can't be open with everybody about it.
I want to. Yeah. I want to shout it on the mountaintops. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's become such a big part of your lives, and it seems like it's really bonded you two closer together. And I also, Ron, I talked over top of you when you were going to tell us all the amazing ways that this has impacted Michelle and that you've seen her grow. And I cut you off before you had a chance to do that. So I want to make sure you do before we go on to the next topic.
Well, sure. Well, I mean, I feel that that Michelle has probably always, I think knowing that she went to sex clubs, and I think she was in a bit of a journey at that time before we were dating, sort of figuring out more about herself sexually. I think that this has really given her the opportunity to blossom in that way. And, she gets to try more things, be more honest, and open herself up in a way that maybe was restricted to me.
I feel like I get a lot of validation in terms of feeling attractive to other men, and in my mind I'm like, yeah, mama's still got it, which is a nice feeling to have after being married for nearly 10 years and having 3 kids. You start to have these self-doubts, so to know that you're still attractive and people want to, be sexual with you feels nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask about that too. It's how has this journey kind of impacted, your, I guess it's easy with 3 young, we do not have children, so it's hard. But I know it's easy with 3 young kids to get very sucked into being a mom, all of that. And so how has this kind of helped you
find
more who adult Michelle again sometimes?
Right. It's a really good question. I think after our first kid, I realized that me time is very precious. I think before having kids, you sort of like procrastinate on your hobbies, or you get lazy and you're like, yeah, I'll do that later. But when you have kids, your time is no longer your own. So you have to carve out the time and make sure you do what you are really passionate about or what you really want to do during that me time. And we're really good about giving each other that space. And so that just, this, ethical non-monogamy fits in within sort of our priorities, right? So we make the time, we make the space. But yeah, I think it's just important to us, important to us being adults. And also I was thinking about it in a way that, that like, this is really the only thing that I can really think of where it's like adults can just play again. We call it play dates, but really it's like, letting loose and being creative with your sexuality and, just exploring. And you don't really have a lot of outlets like that as an adult. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think it's really important and we make time for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think people use the term play and for probably a lot of different reasons, but I think like you just kind of pointed out, like it's like, you're in a sandbox and you're playing around and you're like, let's try it like this tonight. And let's maybe make this little adjustment. And then we'll talk about it afterwards and see, like, did we both like it? Did one of us like it? Like, what can we do different? And I think, cause we've done a fair bit of this ourselves and like each time is a little bit of an experiment and it's just kind of like, it's fun and you go into it excited, you come out of it excited and thinking about like, oh, how can we do it again? What's the next time look like? Mm-hmm. And I totally get that.
Yeah.
I also think it's important to like say, because people don't get to see you too, like we do, but you haven't stopped smiling since we got on here, Michelle. So I don't know if that's like an everyday, all day thing, or if that's just because we're talking about what we're talking about. But I think it was important to share that.
Thank you. So. I do smile a lot, but maybe a bit more when I'm nervous too.
Fair enough. Yeah. I love that. So, well, thank you both for sharing everything you've shared so far. It's been fun learning about it and hearing how you two tackle it. So, yeah.
Is there anything else that either of you wanted to get out there?
No, I don't think so. Do you have anything?
I don't have any specific agenda that I came here with, but
well, we could always ask you to how you stay safe, because I think maybe that's a good one that I think it's something that Emma has gone out not way in the past, but years ago she would go out on her own, and there is a little bit of fear and trepidation there. And I know that's like probably a little bit of patriarchy, like, oh, this dainty little lady can't handle herself out there in the world. But like, how do you two keep each other safe, keep yourself safe, and even as a couple, like exploring this?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Do you look at like do you track my phone?
So I use a phone, like the iPhone tracker to, and then she checks in a few times throughout the evening to make sure.
Yeah. And like generally like just gut feeling I feel like I'm pretty good about that, just to make sure, like I'm not, I don't feel like something's off in terms of safety in that way. In terms of play, like always using condoms, really. Yeah. The typical stuff.
Michelle, do you do most of the communication, and like Ron, you don't even necessarily like interact with the other person often, and you're just sort of checking in with Michelle, like, how are you feeling about it? Is this going forward? Like, how do you two handle that communication piece of it?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Generally, that's how it is. It didn't start out that way, actually. I think we started using some, more swinger sites before to find people. And we found, I think that Michelle really didn't like that. And we also didn't find very good quality through those websites. And so then we started using Field. And that's much more one-on-one anyways. You can do group conversations, but she mostly does that. She connects with people and just tells me about it.
Right. And I think like before, like you would you would come to meet the person and you might be involved when we actually would set up a play date, I think. But just practically, I think I go out on my own and, you're just like, send me a naughty text, or like send me a, naughty picture and, and come back and tell me all the gritty details. And, I think that's been working for us so far.
Yeah. I mean, we only started with you playing on your own recently. Before that, it was always, I would be there when it was a play date,
but like also there haven't, like, we've talked about it a few times, but there haven't been like rules or boundaries around, how I'm playing or, what is like what I don't know what I'm trying to say, but there aren't really many rules around like me going out with a single male and what I'm allowed or not allowed to do. I don't know if we want to say it in those terms, but
no, I probably want you to do more than you do.
Right.
Well, I think that's a good point, though. It's not it sounds like it's not like, okay, you're out tonight. I need these 7 photos and a video that's at least 25 seconds long. Like, you don't go out with like a homework assignment that you have to come home with.
No, although I do appreciate those things. And it's sort of funny because the last couple of experiences, she had the intention of doing them and just totally fucked it up.
I turned the camera the wrong way, so it was like filming the wall.
So I have a 30-minute soundbite, which is actually very interesting, but still
it wasn't what the intention was.
And I think the other time you ended the recording when you meant to start the recording.
Oh no! So yeah, we're dealing with technical issues more so than like any sort of.
That's amazing. I love it.
I mean, I think that, talking about that aspect of it, I think that a big part of this is that, she's basically become, my personal porn star. And so if I'm there, I might take some video or photos. And if I'm not there, she might be able to get some. But, that part is, that's pretty precious to me, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a piece that lets you like be a part of the experience, even though you're not technically part of the experience or physically part of the experience. I think you are technically part of the experience. I'm curious though, like how do those experiences then now contrast or compare with experiences with other couples? Like for both of you, I guess. So this is like, Michelle, you're now seeing him with potentially another partner.
Yeah.
And now Ron, you're a bit more distracted, and now you're like, where's my? I don't know. I'm projecting now. I'm just.
You're projecting based on your experience.
I'm like, you need to get the video right so I can still experience this later because I'm busy over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we have been with couples, it has been a bit uneven, unbalanced. So probably the last couple that we were with, you had a better experience than I did that time. And like seeing, like I never like feel jealous at all. It's quite fun, and I get to see like different angles too. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I haven't seen that part of you before. So it is definitely fun in that way. I will say the last time, even though I wasn't jealous, I did feel a bit inadequate a bit. I don't know if that's the word that I keep, coming up with. And the reason why is like, she was over here, like, having an orgasm every 2 seconds. And the guy that I was with was working really hard. I wasn't getting there. And I was like, oh, wow, like not jealous, but I'm just not comparing.
Well, I mean, I understand, but, it's different. You and her are just very different in that way. But
right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the getting out of your own head is sometimes the hardest part of like, let me not compare this right now. It doesn't but you have to sometimes tell yourself that nope, don't go to the comparison point. Cause there's no, that's not going to do any good, but it's really hard.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, we've even if it has felt unbalanced in terms of attraction and enjoyment, I think we've still mostly when we've been with couples, they've all been fairly positive experiences.
Yeah. They've been nice people and we've had a good time.
Yeah.
even if sexually wasn't the best experience for one of us, it was still a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think also, like, just in contrasting the different experiences, now that you're going on dates and playing on your own, even without me, I think that you probably like that better because you don't feel like you're putting on a show so much for me. Right. I mean, so you're able to let loose and enjoy yourself a little bit more than you did if I were just sitting there sort of watching or maybe participating a little bit. But
yeah, definitely. It just feels a bit more natural.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think we've slowly gotten to that point, and I think we both feel comfortable with that dynamic. So yeah.
Well, and I'm excited to see how it continues to evolve because you never know.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I imagine it will. We're only at the beginning of our journey, so
right.
Who knows what's to come years ahead.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we can let you go, but because we know it's late there. But I have one final question, and you've kind of already shared one sort of blooper around facing the camera the wrong way, and we know you two listen to the show. So if you have another blooper that you would love to share with us, we would of course love it, but no pressure.
So we do have sort of a blooper from our very first experience. So when we went to the party, I mean, there's a couple pieces to this. When we went to the party, we had a good friend of ours babysitting for us, and we were not open about what we were doing. So we said we were going to a movie, which meant that we had a time limit when we had to get home. And also we felt bad having her stay up till, 2, 3, 4 in the morning until we came home. So we were like, we'll be home. I don't know what we said.
1, I think.
12:31, whatever it was. So we knew we sort of had a time limit. And, the way these things work, it takes time for things to develop when you go to these parties, right? And this is our first party too. So we're not just jumping straight into it. So we're with this couple and we're having a good time. And then the other guy loses his condom inside of Michelle. And so there's sort of an oh shit moment there for a second. So I go and I fish it out. And then we run to the bathroom just to, clean up or whatever. And then we bolted because we realized how late it was. And we felt really bad afterwards because we're like, oh, we barely even said goodbye to them. They probably think that we were mortified because of the lost condom and whatever. But really, we were just really late and had to get.
Didn't want to explain to the babysitter what was going on.
Right. Eventually I did, actually. I was like, remember that time you babysat for us? Well, what we were actually doing.
I love that. Well, and hopefully they're listening and they now know that, like, it wasn't personal. You just had to get home because your movie was over.
Right, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing to happen on your first experience doing this. So I give you a lot of credit for like weathering that. That's a big one. That's a tough one.
Yeah. I think like it was a bit awkward, fishing the condom out and that whole thing, but I don't think that scared us away in any way.
We're still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Thank you for sharing the blooper, and thank you for everything that you've shared, and for staying up late too. We appreciate it, and we're excited to get this out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you both. And if there's nothing else, we'll give you one final opportunity to share anything you haven't shared, and then we can let you get along with your night.
Yeah, no, just a huge thank you. We obviously listen to the podcast, so appreciate everything that you have put out there. Obviously, we've gotten a lot out of it, and it's sort of guided us through our journey as well. So big thank you for doing what you do and having us on. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you for coming on and giving back. Like, I think that's one of our favorite things about this is there's people that get a ton out of this, like you two just said. And then you have the opportunity to come and like give it right back to somebody else because you are now somebody else's sort of like beacon of like, oh, this is how we can do hotwifing and swinging our own way. So I love that. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, have a wonderful evening and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.
And we're back. Thank you, Michelle and Ron, for sharing your story and coming on and talking with us. It was wonderful, and we're excited to get it out there. So thank you again.
And again, I'm sorry.
Finn's going to be apologizing for
Ever
days.
and ever and ever. And I'm sorry for that. All right.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, before we let you go, we want to just run through a couple quick community announcements. Head on over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and while you're there, there's lots of things that you can do. You can sign up for our Patreon community that's growing every single day by using the Patreon button. And you can also sign up for our upcoming virtual meet and greet, September 27th. These are open to anyone that wants to join. You just must be respectful and open-minded. So we'd love to have you join us.
You can also grab a shirt, a Give Love shirt. We were rocking those at the meet and greet, as were a bunch of other people, and they're amazing. Again, links to find that are on our homepage. And you can sign up for the premium subscription if you already aren't. Again, links are on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, to do all of these things. And of course, you can always send us a voicemail or an email. We would love to hear from you, and you will hear from us.
Next week, we have an interview with Yana, which is amazing. So come back and listen.
It is. It's a throwback to when Emma had COVID.
It did, yes. We did the recording of this next episode when I had COVID, so I wasn't the most energetic.
It's all good. We will see everybody in a week. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and enjoy your weekend.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.